Okay, so we are right at about time. So I guess we'll just let people in as they come in. Can everybody hear me okay? Elyse, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Perfect. Okay. So first off, I just want to say welcome, and thank you for taking time to be here with us today. I know how busy life and business can be. So the fact that you're here tells me that you care about growing your impact and your relationships. So today we're going to talk about why client events matter more now than ever before, especially in a world where everything feels digital, automated, and even transactional. More importantly, we are going to talk about how you can use client events and experiences not just to impress people, but to deepen trust, increase loyalty, and grow your business in a much more intentional and meaningful way. By the end of our time together, you're not just going to understand why this works, you're going to walk away with clear ideas and strategies that you can actually use. So, before we dive in, I want to quickly introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Amanda Heater, and I am the CEO of Across the Horizon Travel. I specialize in helping business owners, organizations, and leaders use travel and experiences not just as a nice perk, but as a strategic tool to build deeper relationships, stronger communication, and more loyal clients. Over the years, I have seen firsthand how powerful it is when you get people out of their normal environment and into a shared experience. Walls come down, conversations change, and relationships go much deeper. And that's really what today is all about, how to create those kinds of moments on purpose. You are going to hear from two voices from event advisors today. Elyse focuses on strategy and how events support business goals and relationships. And Angela brings a real world perspective. She's been in the financial services seat and she is responsible for making events actually work. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks so much for having us. I'm Elyse, and as Amanda said, we help businesses design events that create connection, not chaos. Angela, you're on mute.
Oh, there we go. And I'm Angela. And I've lived this from the inside, balancing client expectations, budgets, compliance, follow-up, and real results.
Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So we always like to start with some statistics. 73% of people surveyed feel that they get a retention boost when they host client events, and a 42% referral increase, and more referrals from those people who attend their events. They aren't just social, it's relationship accelerators. They speed up trust, strengthen loyalty, and naturally create referrals. What matters most isn't the event itself, which is weird to hear from event people. It's the changes that happen because of the event.
Absolutely. And from my experience sitting inside the advisory firms, the strongest client relationships were built in rooms just like this, virtual and in person, not formal meetings, but in shared experiences that made conversations easier and more human. And that's what trust is built on.
So let's dive into this a little bit. Where we see events usually fall short isn't in execution, it's in intention. We talk about strategic events, and they're designed with clarity. Who is it for? Why does it exist? And what should happen afterwards? And you'll hear a lot about this because this is one of our favorite subjects to talk about, is that follow-up isn't something you tack on later. It's something you design from the start.
And people are probably just nodding their heads going, I don't do the follow-up. When follow-up isn't planned, the opportunity just evaporates. You feel like you hosted something meaningful, but nothing actually continues. People are just great, it's done, it was a success. Run back to all those emails that collected while you were doing the event, and then you're like, oh, should we have reached out? Or, oh, we didn't hear from anybody. So follow-up is key.
One of the other things that we hear from a lot of people is this idea of, I don't like doing client events because I feel like the ROI on them isn't there. So what we do with event advisors is we flip the script a little bit. So instead of talking about planning for ROI, we talk about ROM, the return on the moment. And now that reframes success. So here you see, right, ROI, it just looks at it through a numbers first lens. How much did we spend? How many people showed up in the room? And sort of short-term efficiencies, if you will. This approach works well for transactions and campaigns, but often overlooks emotional and relational impact. ROM, on the other hand, focuses on the impact of the moments that matter, what people felt, remembered. These outcomes reflect trust, relationship depth, retention, referrals, and long-term business momentum. In practice, some events look successful on paper, while simpler, more intentional experiences create lasting connection. One of the analogies that we like to use here too is I come from the sports and entertainment world, so I drop these analogies in quite a bit. If you just look at the scoreboard to determine success, you're really missing a lot of opportunity for growth and connection. Because what you can find is if you look deeper into your statistics, you can see improvement, you can see correlation. You know, if it's hockey, right? Like, does this line perform better together than that line? Because you're really digging into it other than just what happened on the scoreboard. So we talked about ROM, and we're going to dive into this. We have sort of these 5 success elements that we believe add up to the return on the moment. It's not about adding complexity. It's about aligning strategy, execution, and follow-up so the experience actually carries forward. When these elements work together, events feel intentional rather than transactional. So we're going to dive into each one of these here in a few, and you can see what we mean about how they all kind of fit together. We start with strategize. The strategy phase focuses on clarifying the emotional goals of the event. Defining how you want people to feel is foundational in creating a return on the moment event experience that resonates.
All right, let's kick off with our first poll. We're going to do this one in the chat. So if you don't have your chat open, open it. In one word, what do you want clients to feel when they attend your events? First word that comes to your mind, drop it in the chat. Connected, empowered. Going, excited. These are great. So there's no right or wrong answer here. It's about intention, not perfection. Like they're not wasting their time. That's great. Once we're clear on the feeling, the planning gets a lot easier because you think about what you want them to leave with and what you want them to feel.
So when we talk about planning an event in this way, we talk about event personality. And I love this graphic because what you'll notice is this is all the same guy, but with different intention, he appears very differently.
Event personality isn't about being creative, it's about consistency. When you know your event personality, decisions get easier and planning is intentional. And that, if you take one word away from this, intentional. This is often where teams realize they've been overcomplicating things.
So when the event personality is clear, every decision downstream gets easier and more aligned. So once we've gotten into this strategy phase, our next step is to organize, putting the right structure and roles in place so that feels consistent and you give it a chance to work. So once this is clear, the phrase is, think of, we're getting tactical oftentimes in organize, but they're really answering a more important question. What structure needs to be in place so the experience feels effortless to the guest? Organization Yeah, it's about logistics, but it's not about over planning or controlling every detail. Good structure creates relief for your team and for your attendees. When the organization is aligned with a return on the moment event outcomes, it does three things really well. It removes friction, it supports the feeling you defined earlier rather than competing with it, and it creates visibility into the moments that matter, which makes follow up easier later. So, from the inside, this is where events stop feeling stressful and start feeling intentional. With that in mind, let's take a look at how different organizational choices can either support or undermine the outcomes you're trying to create.
Okay, we're going to pause and do a quick poll. Amanda, are you ready? Okay. Oops, remember my notes. All right, which choice best reflects ROM, return on the moment outcomes? Pick which one resonates, you think is the right answer. Finalizing the catering order, assign clear team roles to make guests feel welcome, or track RSVP counts only. Okay, we're going to go to the chat. So one, two, or three. One, finalizing catering order so you don't have to do all the typing. Two, assign clear team roles to make guests feel welcome. Or three, track RSVP. What do you guys think? Which is a better ROM, return on the outcome moment? Okay, one, finalizing the catering order. Two, assigning clear team roles. Anyone else? Two, assigning clear team roles. Okay, let's go to the next slide and see which one's right.
Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry. Technical
A lot of
difficulty.
moving parts today. All right, it's assigning the clear team roles to make guests feel welcome. And the reason this is aligned with return on the moment, ROM, return on the moment, clear roles don't mean more people. They mean fewer missed moments. So for example, your assistant who is signing people in is also doing the setup, perhaps taking pictures and making sure everyone has the materials or gifts when guests leave. She knows or he knows what their role is, and everyone else knows what their role is. So they're not like, oh, did somebody give them the gifts? Or, oh, somebody's at the door, they need to be signed in. It's very clear. So when everyone knows their role, guests feel it and they feel it immediately. And then the follow-up becomes that much more natural.
That's a great example, Angela. And as you said, it's a practical and powerful organizational move that a lot of people don't do because again, they're so into the logistics that they forget that organizing also is how is this going to look when people actually come to our events? Um, and as you said, it's tied directly to outcomes. So, organization isn't about micromanaging, it's also about deciding who's paying attention to what. In Angela's example, we have somebody who's doing the check-in, we have someone who's making sure that everybody gets their gifts. We may have people who are kind of just taking it all in, right? Like who's feeling at ease, kind of the lay of the land. And then we do have people who are working with the restaurant staff to make sure that the food's coming out at the right time and all of those things. Because when roles are clear, guests feel welcome and noticed, and team members feel confident instead of reactive. And again, we hear it again. Follow up is naturally teed up because you already know what happened and who experienced it. So after we organize, we are moving to promote. Now, if you have a marketing background, you think about promote as the idea of like, I've got to get my message out. I've got to invite. I've got to figure out what my social media strategy is. And yes, and is probably the best way to put it, because the way we believe it is when you're dealing with it in an ROM, return on the moment planning opportunity, promote is the time that you're actually starting to set the tone and quite honestly welcome your guests. So here's an example.
All right, we're actually going to do this example in the as a poll, but Amanda, do you want to do it in the chat? Should we do it in the chat again? I don't think we can.
I launched the poll. I don't think us as hosts can select it. Hey, Nikki, I know you're on here. Can you unmute really quick? Are you able to click? Oh, yep, we're getting responses now. Perfect.
There we
Okay,
go.
perfect.
Yep.
So let's do it in the poll. Let's do it in the poll. Thank you,
Thanks, Nikki.
Which email subject line would you open first? Join us for our annual client appreciation dinner, or one evening, one toast, a story worth remembering. This is you. Which would you open? Okay. All right, we want to jump to the next slide. All right, it's unanimous. And this is how clients decide whether something is worth their time before they see the details. And remember at the very beginning, we were talking about what do we want the client, the invitees to feel? Well, even starting with the first email and the subject, we want to evoke emotion. And we're so used to join us May 3rd or don't miss out. So when you mix it up and you put in something that evokes emotion, they'll be like, oh, what's this? So one evening, one toast, a story worth remembering is the correct answer. And it works because it primes the emotion, creates the curiosity, and frames the event as an experience and not a, oh my gosh, one more event, one more obligation. Promotion is part of the client experience, as Elyse said. It's not a separate marketing task. And the key takeaway here is promotion sets expectations.
Exactly. And that's something where we spend a lot of time working with our clients in this space because, as Angela said, right, the experience is starting here. We've already talked about and strategized of how we want them to feel. This is the first external facing, if you will, idea of how do we put that into action. From there, we go there. We're going to produce. Again, if you're an event person, you put your hat on and you say, this is where the rubber meets the road, right? Like this is where we're going to show our strength. But think of it this way. Produce is actually the place where your strategy is actually revealed. It's the moment where all those earlier choices show up in real life. The tone, the flow, the pacing, how people are actually having the experience that we talked about in our strategy. Memorable moments don't come from complexity, as we've said, but they come in these intentional choices. So, for example, we've seen events where nothing fancy changes, right? It's the same venue, same agenda, but one small production decision, how people are connecting in the room, for example, how somebody feels when they're actually addressed by their first name, or or a staff member actually introducing to guests with shared interests, shared business interests. That changes the whole energy in the room. So, from the execution standpoint, production is less about perfection and about, then we say, it's about awareness. Noticing what's landing and protecting that, supporting, again, our return on the moment element success.
Since we're trying to make sure you guys stay awake, we're going to do another chat drop. So drop into the chat one moment from a past event that clients still mention. These moments are usually simple, and that's exactly the point. Yummy wine. Some events that I've been to, they comment on the music, a live band. Two clients realized they worked together on different floors. That was a good one. Delicious food. So the key takeaway here is you can design for shareable moments on purpose. And I actually want to just do a quick example on what Elyse had said. Two clients realized they work on different floors. So we did an event. Actually, it was back in the fall. And it was an open house pie, pick up a pie for the holidays. And her clients were there. And two clients that she knew, she didn't connect the dots. One actually just transferred to that company and she hadn't connected the dots. But when they were there, the two clients were chatting. They worked in the same company, the same different departments, but the same floor. And so now they connected at work. And then when we last spoke to them a couple of weeks ago, there are other people that they are working with when they shared that common experience. They're now joining the advisors firm. So it was kind of fun. Again, that's a shareable moment.
Right. So that last part, right? They discovered at the event that they had this connection. And then what happened? Which is then when we get to follow-up. The goal for a strong moment, and again, we use the terminology of event and moment often interchangeably here. The goal is to create a moment that doesn't end when people leave the room or leave the Zoom or the chairs get folded up or whatever analogy you want to use. And part of that is because you've gathered this information along the way that you use that in your follow-up. So follow-up is where moments turn into meaning. This is the difference, again, between ROI and ROM, because you're using emotion to drive action. And if you don't translate that moment, you lose the momentum. A lot of people also think about follow-up and go, sure, like I do follow-up. I send a survey and I find out all about what people thought of that event. I learned this great terminology last week when I was at an event conference, and they were talking about the difference between thin data and thick data. And we're going to have a poll here for a second, but let me kind of frame this for you a little bit. Thin data tells you what happened. On a scale from 1 to 10, how did you like the restaurant? How did you like the chicken? Whatever. Thick data tells you why that moment mattered. Thoughtful follow-up captures thick data and reinforces our event outcomes. And it's actually pretty simple, and you'll see here in a sec.
All right, another poll. Which event-related question gives you the best relationship deepening data? Thick data, like Elyse just said. On a scale of 1 to 10, did you enjoy the venue? Would you bring a friend to our next event? And of the wines we tasted, which was your favorite? Which gives you that thick, meaningful data? Did you bring a friend to our event? Anyone? Want to jump to the next slide?
I would love to.
Please. All right, it's actually which wine is your favorite? The best follow-up questions open doors. They don't just close loops. So asking something like which wine was your favorite shows you were listening. It gives you something specific to reference later on and creates a natural bridge to another conversation. So if we are talking about wine and you find out which is their favorite, it can go into the database. And when you have an anniversary or a holiday gift, you know which wine, and all of a sudden it appears and like, wow, they remembered. So instead of reaching out with a generic, thanks for coming, we could say something like, I was thinking about what you said about the Pinot. Or, you mentioned really enjoying that conversation at your table. The key takeaway here is insights beat generic feedback.
And the other part of that too is the fact of it gives you a natural opportunity to follow up with deeper conversations based on information you got here versus simply feeling like I've done the event. Now I have to do my sales call to try to get that next meeting. So now what you'll see here is we've done our follow-up, but we're not done yet because we're actually coming back up to the top of the circle and back up to strategize. And that is intentional. There's our word. Because strategy isn't a one-time thing. Each event gives you insight into what resonated and what mattered. And then you can use that when you're planning your next moment. That's also the real value of this thick data. So we've kind of dropped some of those ideas in here, but we're going to give you a quick example, real life example that kind of shows you how we go through this wheel for an event. And Angela's going to share with us.
This one is quite fitting because it was a Galentine's event, and we're coming up on that time of year right now. So this was a brunch with a painting, like one of those paint and sips, and the vendor came to the brunch. So I'll back up for a minute, going to event personality. We wanted to be very intentional, and we asked the women of the firm kind of what events would they like to see and what would they like of those events. They wanted crafting, they wanted, amongst other things, they wanted to be close to the freeway, they wanted to be able to bring friends and adult children, they wanted community. Lots of other things showed up in that survey, but we took what I just mentioned, those pieces, and created a Galentine's brunch and painting afternoon. And it was at a lovely restaurant near the freeway, actually near a couple of freeways. And we had the vendor come into the restaurant. So they came in, at the back of the room was the brunch table. They were all greeted. We had lunch, brunch, and then moved to this area. And the women that came brought neighbors, friends, adult children. And you'll see in the back, this is a male advisor. So it doesn't matter. This was a Galentine's event that he put on, which makes it even more fun because it was just this advisor and the ladies. And I was actually there, as you can see in the front. And everyone was fun and interacted and commented on people's paintings, and really made that shared community experience. And then everybody took their paintings. And if you've been to a painting party, it's like, okay, how quick can I get it in the garage, or is it going to go away? But the advisor made everyone promise that they're not going to give it away. And if they wanted to put it in the garage or their office, that's okay. The advisor then he encouraged them to keep it out. And he actually has his painting, which he hated, has his painting in his office behind his desk. And this was a while ago, and it's still there. And so every Zoom, every meeting, it's there, and it becomes a topic of conversation. And everyone still remembers that moment.
I think the other thing to point out here is sort of from that strategy point of view. This advisor was also wanting to find a way to deepen relationships, stereotypically speaking, with the female spouses in his book. He was finding that a lot of with the couples, only the men were coming to the meetings. So he wanted to deepen relationships with the women. This is also, again, so that was part of his strategy of this, was to be able to host events for women, and deepen those relationships. Now, fast forward, we have seen that that actually has worked. That as spouses were passing away, the accounts were actually staying with this advisor because the surviving spouse had a relationship with that client. So, we're talking about how this is all very well and good, but let's talk about this in real life terms and the idea that we're doing these events because we want to move our businesses forward, and why a client event is a really good thing versus a lot of events that are prospecting. This is almost like an internal prospecting situation. We good? Okay. So we wanted to open this up. Again, you've been listening to us talk for a long time here. We wanted to open this up for dialogue, but also we've attached this QR code, which will take you to what we call our client insight playbook. And what that is it's like basically 6 questions that you can use to survey your clients to be able to understand what events they want. Again, remember we were talking about the success of an event is also based on something that resonates with the people that you want in the room. So feel free to scan that QR code and we can take some questions.
Elise, I have a question. I know that people on this call, you've been referencing advisors over and over again, and I don't believe everybody on this call is necessarily an advisor, like a financial
Mhm.
advisor.
Mhm.
Could you clarify like the clients that you typically work with so that the people on this call and that are going to be receiving a copy of this recording will know who you work with and who they potentially can refer you to or if they're able to work with you?
Absolutely. So our business was started working in financial services because that's where Angela grew up. Like I said, I come from sports and entertainment, so it was this crossroads of strategic events and implementation. But really, who do we work with? We can work with any business who is looking to deepen relationships with their current clients to make sure that they either don't go anywhere or know that they can deepen the relationship to do more business with you, or you're giving them opportunities to refer you to their circle. You know, as we always like to say, birds of a feather flock together, so that it's not just, oh, like my accountant did an amazing job with my taxes this year. You should use them too. I mean, that's great, but to give that opportunity for somebody to speak about their accountant, their realtor, their lawyer, their dentist, their med spa, their whatever, in a more human and connected manner.
And I should
Next
also
question. Oh, go ahead, Angela.
jump in there. The events don't have to be large. So if you're a med spa and you're wanting to deepen the relationships with your clients, it could just be an open house and invite, some of your top clients and have them bring a friend. It doesn't have to be expensive. They don't have to be large. I just wanted to put the asterisk in there. Go ahead, Amanda.
You actually answered my question. So
Well, there you go.
great minds think
I
alike, right?
saved you the voice. Saved you the words and the voice.
Yes.
Exactly.
Feel
Well,
free to unmute everybody that's on the call if you have a question or drop a question in the chat if you're not able to unmute. If you don't have any other questions, we'll go ahead and close up the Q&A the next like 20, 30 seconds, and then we'll proceed forward.
and I should also say too that if you're like me, you can't think of anything on the spot. And then as soon as we close, but oh, I had a question. We'll have our email in the next couple of slides. Email us your question. We're happy to answer it.
All right.
I think we have one more chat and then we can close out.
Yep.
Actually, we have two. We have a poll and a chat. Okay, last poll. Which ROM return on the moment practice will you try first? Strategize. Identify my event personality before planning logistics. Organize. Assign clear team roles to capture client reactions. Promote. Test event subject lines that spark feeling and curiosity. Produce. Intentionally design and note a shareable moment. Or follow up. Design specific event-related questions that provide useful client insight. There's no right or wrong on this one. Promote, test, event subject lines that spark feeling and curiosity.
I
Anyone
love
else?
that one. I love that one because I feel like that is really manageable as you're going through this. It's just changing the lens a little bit on something that we're normally doing anyway as part of our event promotion, and just thinking about it again as this is where the experience starts, instead of, oh, the experience doesn't start until they pull up to the front door.
Right. Right. And now with the AI being, the word of the day, you can put in a description of your event. You can put in your invitation, put it into AI and say, provide me a couple of catchy subject lines, and maybe even put the emotion that you want to elicit. And there you go. You could do it in a minute.
I love that. The other one that I've been using a lot too is thinking about curiosity over instruction. We have a tendency to put instructions in our subject lines. But if you can just spin it enough, like again, you can get super creative and people aren't going to open your email because they're like, I have no idea what the heck this means. But if you can just add curiosity enough, like we talked about it in the earlier poll, it gets people excited and comfortable. Another tip that's really one of our favorites is the like day before logistics email. Like again, you don't have to get cute with that, but setting the expectation and priming people's mind so that when they do in fact come to that client event, they're not frazzled because they couldn't figure out where to park, or they were thinking about like, well, what was I supposed to wear? Like, is this a formal thing? Is this an informal thing? I can't really figure that out based on the venue. So it's just putting people at ease. So when they do actually arrive, they're ready for a good time, to be educated. Again, whatever that thing is that you're trying to get them doing that strategy point. So
Don't try and overhaul everything. One small shift is enough to start.
excellent.
All right. So the last piece in the chat, share a one-word takeaway from today. As we close, drop a word in the chat that captures what you're taking away from today. And again, there's no right or wrong answer. Research. Being intentional is a good one, or intentional. No, that's one word. That was two words. Goals. Well, we know we've had a lot of interaction today, and we try and do that again to be intentional. Oh, better structure over. That's more than one word. Better structure over planning and controlling every detail. That would be intentional. Being intentional. That's okay.
It's all good.
I love the color on it.
So Jen, you use as many words as you need to. It's all good.
So, well, we hope that you got something out of this and can just take a quick takeaway. And again, it's not overhauling everything. It's just making slight shifts. Thanks for being engaging. I know we threw a lot at you in polls and chats.
Yes, thank you everybody for joining today. We did record, so we'll be sending the recording out to everybody that registered for the event. So if you had some questions about anything, here's our contact information. Please feel free to follow both of us on LinkedIn. We are all three of us very active on LinkedIn. We've got our websites on here, email if you have any questions, and we hope that you had some great takeaways from today, and we appreciate each and every one of you hopping on. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you again. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.